All right, guys. So this week I'm with my good buddy and longtime collaborator, Ashley Todd Fell, who's a filmmaker in Guanajuato, Mexico, the founding member of Lanzando Lazaros, it's a film production crew within Guanajuato, Mexico. He's done many short films, worked on several music videos, including three of mine, as well as a live video of mine. Is an amazing photographer, a great editor, and a good friend. You and I know each other from Guanajuato, Mexico, where I've kind of always been doing music and writing, and you've been doing photography and film. It's funny, during the pandemic, I narrated my first feature documentary that was called In the Belly of the Moon. And that is our mutual friend, Antoine Hunt, who's a Bermudan filmmaker, who ironically, technically, we both worked on this project, but we didn't work on it together. So I had done the film score on a short called Insomnia, which I guess we both know Antoine through Mezcal, because I have a Mezcal bar down here.
Okay, well, I'd met Antoine at the Guanajuato Film Festival 10, 11 years ago, and we had filmed that short film Insomnia, and I had helped out with the filming itself, logistics and setting up camera stuff and art direction, and it's kind of a producer. We had like a crew of like 4 or 5 people on that, so it wasn't that big. And then you'd done the soundtrack, and I mean,
I think technically that's the first project that we worked on together, despite the fact that we didn't work on it together at all.
that project was interesting because we went to some interesting places in the north, where I think I'd gone with you before, to the areas where they made the mezcal that you bought for your bar. So that was an interesting trip. And so Antoine came back the next year, and he wanted to do like a mezcal documentary. So we went up to that area with a different idea than a fiction film. Just going to the same places, filming a bunch of stuff about how they made the mezcal, interviewing a bunch of local people, and then he and I ended up going all the way to Oaxaca, which is mezcal that's like a big region for mezcal. So he and I went to little towns, and we're just filming on our kind of like small, like our personal cameras, and then after several years, I hadn't heard anything about the project. Helped him make like a little preliminary edit on that. I'd gone to San Miguel de Allende where he was staying, and helped to subtitle some of the interviews and stuff, because his Spanish is
Not perfect.
not perfect. Yeah. So we were kind of working on ideas for that, and then it just kind of disappeared for years. Then he came back, and he got a super professional like red movie camera, professional drone, and it was interesting because they went and they reshot some of the things. Was like this weird deja vu, seeing the movie, his finished documentary, which I thought was amazing. It was really good, but it was this weird deja vu because I was like, I shot that on my little DSLR camera and it looks amazing. And it turns out he'd gone back and like replicated shot for shot stuff that we'd done in 2012. We'd shot these things. And so he went with just very different equipment with the whole film crew and stuff, and reshot a lot, like 99% of what we've done, and added some new things, and then added the silver and really made it into a cohesive package. And I was just very impressed. Anyway, very happy that it came out and that I was part of that whole process. But it was kind of weird to see. It was a little surreal to see kind of like the same take, same interviews with the same people, the same things done a second time, but in a higher quality. It's kind of like, I don't know if it's ever happened when in a dream or something, you're like, oh, I had the most amazing idea to save the world, or the most beautiful poem, or the most beautiful music, and then you wake up and it's like garbage. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. It's incomplete, but in your head, it's like an awesome thing. And it was kind of the inverse of that. It was kind of like oh, I had this, we had these ideas. We're just messing around, going to these places and filming with our little cameras that fit in a backpack. And then he went back and filmed it with this whole film crew, and it's sort of the opposite. It's like anyway, very interesting to see it. I got to see the film in a theater at the Churubusco studios with like THX sound and like 4K digital projector and stuff. So it was.
Oh, that's wild. Did my narration and my very questionable indigenous pronunciation sound sound okay in that setting?
I'm not sure about your pronunciation, man, but the you did rumble the seats. So the sound mix was very good.
Well, at least
and you're also in that. You're also in that film for about 10 seconds.
Yeah, I know. I didn't notice it the first several times, and then I was just like, I think I had it playing on the background at a party, and someone was like, "Oh, isn't that you?" And I was like, "What?" Obi-Wan Kenobi. Thumbs up or thumbs down?
It's okay. I think my favorite is still the Mandalorian. I am very impressed with what Jon Favreau and these guys have been doing the last couple of years, starting with the Mandalorian. Like these series, I feel are way more interesting and doing way more justice, and they're just better stories than anything between the prequels or the sequels of, aside from the original trilogy. I feel like these are like they're back to making real Star Wars. And by real Star Wars, I mean something that's watchable. I'm not like a super Star Wars fan. I'm a filmmaker, and I'm like, well, this is good. So
I was not a huge fan of the kind of stories and storytelling in The Mandalorian, but the technology and the filmmaking sort of advances and innovations that they used to make The Mandalorian, I thought was amazing.
What I like is that they kind of focus on a single story, because that's what the prequels and these other ones, they just put in so many characters. We don't get any time. We don't care about anybody. They're talking. There's just all this stuff happening, and it's all surface. I'm talking about the last 6 movies since 1999. So much Star Wars stuff now between like the animation and like all the actual bulk. If you actually look at how many hours of like canon Star Wars stories there are. Star Wars is an animated show that happens to have a few movies and stuff. Hundreds of hours of all different like animation and things. And if you don't get into that, you're like, feels like you're missing out on a bunch of stuff. And I'm not that guy.
That's the stuff that's like canon. There's a bunch of people that are furious about a whole shitload of books and comics and everything else that's considered the extended universe that is no longer part of that canon. Just the recognized canon is like this, like you said, hundreds and hundreds of hours of animation and everything else.
Well, going a little deeper on all this is not just talking about Star Wars itself, but I feel like whether it's Marvel or Harry Potter or these huge franchises, it's just kind of weird that so much space in the culture, in the global culture and literary culture, and just in people's minds and their feelings and the stories we tell ourselves. It's taking up so much real estate in the brains and imagination of people all around the world. It's taken up by these big corporate properties, and people forget that this stuff is owned. It's not. They aren't your friends. They aren't your. In ancient times, you'd have like your grandfather would tell you the tribe stories around the fire, or they would tell you the whatever it was. It could be propaganda or whatever the heck the story was being told. Like the idea that it's a corporate property, whether it's written by committee or written by freaking geniuses who are hired by a committee, it's still owned with a copyright. I don't know. I think people get way too emotionally invested in things that don't belong to them. Like I think it's a real conflict that people feel passionate about it, whether it's Star Wars or Star Trek or whatever. People, there's this fandom, and people just feel like they own it and it's part of them. And yet there's these huge media corporations that they just see it as a property. And the assets are, the fans are another asset that belongs to the property.
Star Wars and Texas Chainsaw Massacre and everything else aside, it's always a pleasure talking with you, man. You know what? Let's very briefly talk about what we got coming up. We're currently in pre-production on a couple of music videos for some EPs. I'm finishing with Fulcrum Mites in Germany in July. A trip that you will be joining me for both my birthday in Barcelona, where I will use that as an excuse to pick up some footage, as well as finishing those albums and shooting those videos in Berlin.
Literally, I've got like different files. So I've got like I want to do one that's a little maybe a horror movie themed. Obviously, I'm into that, and And I've got a lot of visual ideas, so I'm making like some the way I work is I browse all kinds of stuff online, and if anything piques my fancy, I put it in a folder. So my computer is just bursting with different visual ideas. It's like my scrapbook. So I'm working on those folders, just trying to work out like which themes are going to be for which the different tracks. What's feasible.
The Patreon videos for that time are definitely going to probably include some behind the scenes footage. If suddenly my videos improve massively in quality, it's because I'm going to have roped Ashley into shooting and editing as a guest Patreon director for 1 or 2 episodes. So yeah, man, pleasure talking with you, hanging out with you.
Same here, man. Thanks for having me.
So I hope you guys enjoyed that update on the tour as well as my interview with Ashley Fell. And yeah, look forward to interacting with all of you. Peace, love, and all of that.